From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. It seems like a given now that the internet is everywhere. Invisible, instant, always on. But that's not actually true. Because in 2026, there are still entire communities where the internet doesn't really exist. At least not in a reliable way, not in a way that lets you live your life. And it's not because people chose to opt out or to disconnect. It's actually because the connection never arrived. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about the people making and breaking our digital world. Today, we're updating a story we did about a blind spot in that world. In the United States, nearly a third of rural Americans still don't have broadband at home, which raises a bigger question. What if the problem isn't just access, but the way the internet itself is built? Today, we meet someone who thinks the fix isn't a patch, it's a redesign, a new kind of internet, one that's faster, cheaper, and light enough to reach the places the old one never did. Do you think eventually we'll get to the point where everyone's connected?
That's my dream. I'd love to find a way to get everybody access to very high-speed, affordable internet, almost like the air that we breathe.
Mahesh Krishnaswamy is working on an internet that doesn't run through underground cables. Instead, it moves through the air, using beams of laser light. And while that might sound like science fiction, the idea itself isn't new. In fact, it's been around for decades. Stay with us. For Mahesh, getting online was never that simple. He grew up in Chennai in eastern India, and actually didn't experience the internet until he was a teenager.
I had to save a lot of money to kind of get a seat at this internet cafe and get online using a very slow modem with all the funny noise of getting online.
And what's the first thing a 16-year-old who gets to go on the internet looks up?
It was all about education and information and knowledge.
Every click opened a window. Cities he'd never seen, universities he might one day attend. The internet became his atlas. He figured out how to apply to college abroad, how to get a visa, and he followed the steps. And eventually, he took a train, then a bus, and then a cab so he could pick up a visa at the American Embassy. He was going to study in the U.S. There was a 36-hour flight to Michigan.
It's our pleasure to welcome you to Detroit, where local time is 8:02. Please stay seated with your seatbelt fastened and your carry-on items stowed until the...
It was in the middle of winter when he arrived. There was only one problem. The airline lost his luggage. Did you have a winter coat?
I did not. It was in the luggage. And so that was kind of a rough ride to kind of come into the United States. But that's basically how I started to learn perseverance and entrepreneurship.
Perseverance that carried him through a master's in electrical and computer engineering and through jobs at Motorola, Apple, and then Google. At Google, he joined the company's Moonshot Factory, the division devoted to ideas that sound impossible until they aren't. One of those ideas was Project Loon.
So Project Loon was a Google X project which was working on using stratospheric balloons, which floats around 20 kilometers, twice the height of commercial airplanes.
You wouldn't see much from the ground, but through a telescope, they look like enormous plastic jellyfish drifting across the sky.
And they navigate and sail through the winds and are able to bring connectivity to places that don't have it or augment the capacity for some of those places. It's like a floating cell tower.
It's called free space optics, a method of sending data through the air using beams of light. In the past, it's been used to link Earth to satellites and spacecraft.
And one of the ideas I had is like, what if we were to send balloons from the United States all the way to India? The closest it got to was to Sri Lanka, way far away from Chennai. And I got a call from my dad saying, like, this is how you're going to solve connectivity?
Every trip home to Chennai, he saw the same frustrations. Slow internet, too many users, not enough bandwidth.
We were literally fighting over a small USB connection in order to get online. And so I would have this heated argument with my dad about why is it so bad? And he challenged me. He said, like, if you really are so passionate about this, why don't you do something about it?
So he did.
What if we use some of the technology that is used between these balloons? What if we were to take that piece of technology and put it down on the ground?
That was the beginning of Taara. Beaming the internet to far corners of the Earth with lasers.
We use beams of light to transmit very high-speed data from one point to the other. Basically, we are able to transmit very high-speed data over the air.
Fiber optic speed without digging fiber. At first, even Mahesh didn't believe it could work.
It was a really dumb idea, I thought, at the time, until I actually started to deploy some of these.
When we come back, Mahesh is forced to prove his idea sooner than he planned. We'll be right back. In 2016, Mahesh had been working on this new kind of internet, one that didn't rely on cables in the ground. And he was in India at a conference about to tell people about what he had in mind when he got an unexpected test. Just before he began, the internet in the room went down.
I was in a conference room filled with execs, along with the chief minister of the seventh largest state. And the internet in that room, which was fed by a fiber optic cable, was cut.
The connection dropped.
And they all experienced the firsthand what an outage of an internet looks like. And I said, like, wait a minute, I think I can solve this problem.
Because just a few miles away, his team had been testing something, a laser link, beaming internet across a river.
And that's when we turned on the link from one side of the river and beamed internet over to this conference room. And then immediately we were able to bring this entire conference room back online again.
And you didn't do this on purpose?
No, I did not do this on purpose.
That accident became proof of concept. The technology relies on Taara devices, each one about the size of a traffic light. Mahesh calls them terminals. Mount one on two existing towers that can see each other, and they're ready to start transmitting data, not through cables, but through the air, on a beam of light.
And they just need to be within watching distance. So they need to be roughly pointing to each other. And then the terminals lock onto each other the moment they see each other.
Once the beams lock in, they hold. This wasn't a moonshot anymore. So Mahesh began testing Taara in places where the need was even more urgent. Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria.
Dark days in Puerto Rico, expected to last months after Hurricane Maria ripped apart the island's entire power grid.
We basically had no infrastructure left on the ground. All the fiber optic cables, all the radio antennas, everything was shot. We were able to relay and bring connectivity to a town, to a grocery store, to a university center, and the mayor's office.
Then the Congo River.
We just put out a couple of links and we were able to connect two countries in just a matter of a few days.
When Mahesh and his team first set out to tackle the connectivity problem, they cast a wide net. By Taara's count, roughly a third of the planet remains offline. That's almost 3 billion people. And at first, Mahesh figured the work should begin in places like India and across Africa. But then came COVID-19. Almost overnight, the connectivity gaps he'd been tracking overseas started showing up much closer to home, across the United States. And just as that realization set in, the phone started ringing. Taara started getting calls from across the country. There was just one problem. This Taara technology still had its quirks. The beams, it turned out, were sensitive to weather, especially fog.
So anything that disperses light will scatter the beam. So especially if you're going long distances, then it's very difficult to close the links.
Wind didn't help either. If the terminal shifted even slightly, the connection could drop. But each failure forced a fix, each outage a refinement, and the calls kept coming. T-Mobile, Coachella, the music festival, even Google, his former employer, signed on as a customer, using a Taara link to connect buildings on a company campus in California. But Mahesh didn't get into this to wire up tech campuses or music festivals. For him, it was about places like Selah, Washington. Taara got that call from the city in the spring of 2025.
The landscape is very difficult. Even if you want to dig and trench, the terrain was very difficult. It's very, very rocky.
There was a rusty old cell tower struggling to keep up with demand.
I personally went out there, and right there, it sunk into me that there is no way they could have ever run any other technology but ours.
Selah took a chance on a Taara terminal, and within months, service stabilized, expanding access across entire neighborhoods.
Seeing it in live action, serving all of these users was phenomenal. It was actually very reassuring and a testament to the work that we've been doing and what we do.
Last year, the Trump administration rewrote the rules for BEAD, a federal broadband expansion program. It used to prioritize fiber optic cable projects. Now, the program is tech neutral. No more priority for fiber. Many worry the new rules could favor satellite companies. But Mahesh wondered something else. What if neutrality isn't about picking winners, but about making room for entirely new technologies?
I think it's absolutely an opportunity. You need to be able to find the most cost-efficient, environmentally least disruptive solution to get the job done. And I believe that Taara has a very significant role to play.
For Mahesh, this was never about infrastructure. Not really. It was about recreating a moment when connectivity first changed his life. In a crowded internet cafe when the wider world suddenly became reachable. And it's about his father.
Does he feel like you've done it?
Well, he would never admit it, that I've done anything in my life. And that's always kept me in pursuit of wanting to please him and keep doing more and more. I just have to know for myself that I'm headed in the right direction. And I also think that this is a long journey, and I'm nowhere close to being done. So in many senses, he's actually right that I haven't really fixed this problem. I haven't solved this completely. So that remains a dream, and that remains the pursuit that I'm on.
Fiber, satellites, lasers, different paths to the same connection. And if Mahesh is right, the next time the internet reaches somewhere new, it might arrive on a beam of light. This is Click Here. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Today's show was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, and Casey Georgie. It was edited by Karen Duffin and Sarah Quevedo, and fact-checked by Darren Ankrum. Original music is by Ben Livingston, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, our illustrator is Megan Goff, and our sound designers and engineers are Jake Cook and Jesse Neiswanger. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and thanks for listening.